Hi.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Robert's here. There he is.
Uh,
Happy New Year.
yeah. Happy New Year, Robert.
Well, thank you. Happy New Year to both of you.
Yeah.
How's it going so far?
So far,
Bad.
so good.
Mine hasn't been very good. Just challenges, just, I don't know,
So what's happening?
adjustment. My sister is in hospice care.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's,
So that's hard.
yeah.
Yeah, none of us have died since our mom and dad, took their lives. So
So will you go back there for her?
no,
Mm.
not in the winter. I
Mm.
told myself I would not go to Indiana in the winter again. I can't walk on the ice, you know. Um, and so if and when she passes, a very dear friend of mine, their family postponed their funeral to a time when it was convenient for the people to come. And that sounds like a good idea.
Hmm.
You don't have to have it right when it happens.
Yeah, I
You-
mean, she has to be buried, but you don't have to do the memorial then. Yeah, you can do the
right,
memorial.
memorial, right.
Yeah.
How are you both? How's
Good.
the new year starting for you?
very well. Yeah.
Not much of a difference.
Well, no, not at all. Yeah, you don't expect that, that it's going to change that quickly.
Here
Yeah.
comes Mark.
It's like when you have a birthday, there's no difference from one year to the next,
Uh-huh.
basis of a few hours.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey,
Happy
Mark.
New Year.
Hey, Mark.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So I'm just trying to, it does feel like a renewing time for my apartment. I'm gonna start growing microgreens.
oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm kind of see if you can.
Mhm.
It's not set up yet, but they're gonna be in here, and with the lights, the grow lights, and just refreshing my living space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark, she just shared that her sister is in hospice, so
Mm,
Yeah.
it's kind of
I
a hard
think-
start to the new
yeah,
year.
thinking about you. Was that, Annie?
Yeah, that really does come into my life, that really makes itself present. That
Is she younger or older?
huh? Yeah,
Is she-
yeah, younger. Yeah, 8 years younger.
Oh,
Um, but I'll be okay.
Was it expected? I
What?
mean, was she sick or was it sudden?
She's had COPD, is
Mhm.
that what it's called? For a long time. And
Hmm.
she even has a transportable oxygen system where she walks. Um, so it's basically that, I think.
Hmm. Yeah.
I have a sister who smoked like a chimney for, I don't know, 50 years and maybe 60. And she can't chop wood anymore, but she has friends. Well, she has friends who help her anyway. But other than that, I think she's going to live to 100.
Great.
Some people just have the capability to just
Yeah.
press on through.
Uh-huh.
She always lived, with a wood stove and, other various and sundry, well, let's just say technology from past centuries. So she's doing fine,
Good.
which I never cease to be amazed by that. She has COPD, but I think it's how you've lived your life as well. And if you've constantly been pushing, and are totally physical, it seems to make a difference.
I think the mindset makes a big difference too. I think we really discount the impact of our mind on our body.
Yeah, Ruthie was always funny. She's funny. We laughed a lot, and like this one incident just rises to my mind when I think of her and sharing her with people. We were at and see, she was an alcoholic, and I was her point person. I'd be the person to take her to the facilities, and I was the point person for her. And she had a very interesting life. And once at a restaurant, the waiter came up and he said to her, has anybody been with you yet? Or has anybody been with you? And she said, oh, darling, you have no idea. Just the number of people. So she is funny.
Good for her.
Oh. Hmm.
I've been noodling on evolution.
You've been what?
Noodling on evolution.
What's the first word before evolution?
Noodling.
Noodling. Oh, no wonder I didn't recognize it. I have two. I have two. I'm writing about it, and I'm feeling called again from Barbara, to embody the evolutionary impulse.
There you go. So what does that mean for you?
What?
What does that mean for you?
It's very exciting and not easy to talk about, but it's an energy in my body, with the understanding that I am nature, and nature evolves. The fact that nature evolves and I am nature, it's like the evolutionary impulse is like, I can almost feel it. And it's mainly around my gut, my gut and my heart, and it just comes out my body. It's an energy. And it gives me courage to go with whatever comes up from within me that raises my vibration.
I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's energizing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I won't be any more subdued this year than I was last year. In fact, I'm never subdued, hardly ever subdued.
Well, when you talk about evolutionary energy, what that comes up in my mind is fun. That there is a joyousness in that
There is.
exploration and um, the the curiosity that generates newness,
Yes.
the willingness to experiment and to try things and to attempt to do stuff.
Yeah.
Just from that place of curiosity and joyousness, just like, what the heck, let's try it.
I love that sentence. Curiosity that generates newness. I love that because that's what it is.
Mhm.
I mean, life plays with itself. Life sees what works. It tries different things.
Yeah, it's never bored.
It's never bored. It's always new.
Yeah. Yeah.
Life is always new.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really like that.
Yeah. And keeping hold of that new, that's almost an oxymoron. Trying to stay in touch with the newness, to be on that edge is what I'm kind of grasping for.
It,
That tingling edge of curiosity.
yes. And
Yeah.
and it's not only the tingling edge of curiosity, it's the very nature of biology.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, it is.
yeah,
Yeah, biology can't help but do that.
can't help but do that.
It's constantly recreating the relationships it finds itself in. So in that recreation is just new opportunities and new ideas and new potentials. Yeah, it's just not to, because everything is unique. So every relationship has to be unique. So when you have new relationships, then that uniqueness is inherently there. It just has to be because none of us are the same. So it just brings forth new stuff if we allow it to bring that up instead of dampening it down. That's kind of what I meant by hanging on to the newness. Being
And
really,
the word diversity keeps I mean is presenting itself to me because it's diversity that makes things new. When something
yeah,
is something new comes in, it becomes something else and it's new.
yes, yep,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. And in my model, evolution is where I put agency because that
For sure.
just what you said in terms of the diversity, which is in resilience, that difference to be responded to authentically has to generate something new. It can't not. We try to prevent it, I think, as humans. We get into habits and all that kind of stuff and dampen that potential. Um, and belief systems do that too. It pulls us back into old ways of doing stuff. But if we stay present with things,
Yeah.
then it can't help but be new. It can't
And
help but be emergent in some way.
and and even when there's dissipation, even when there's dissolution, it's all part of the process of renewal.
Well, you have to let go in order to be new. You can't hang on to the old stuff, so something has to die and dissolve in that process at the same time. It's they both happen simultaneously, actually. Yeah, I had COVID over Christmas, so I'm still a little bit on the horse side, sorry.
Yeah.
But there's just sort of there's an excitement. So what I'm sensing also is that in that process, there's both an engagement and a standing back. You have to allow to happen whatever is going to happen, which is the standing back part. But you also have to be engaged in it for it to show up.
Response.
Yeah, responsive. But so it's a both and. It's a holding on and letting go at the same time. The engagement would be the holding on part, being involved with what it is, and responding to it in an authentic way, and then letting go and being able to allow for that and to see what it is, to notice. Maybe that's a human capacity. I don't know. That would be really interesting to explore, because part of our ability to reflect seems to be unique to our species, although it's really hard to tell.
Self-reflective consciousness.
Yeah.
Barbara said it came in 15,000 years ago.
It's not very far away.
Humanity had self-reflective consciousness, yeah, a species.
15,000 years is not very far away.
When frontal lobes were added to the human.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'd like to give an example, if I might. I haven't been thinking of it in terms of evolution, but in terms of emergence.
Mm.
Painting. I've been painting a lot. And I'll show you what I've been working on. I guess I've got to get rid of this.
Pull it closer to you.
No, I'm just going to.
No, it's got to be closer to you. We can't see it. Put it in front of your face. Oh, there you go. Okay.
There,
Ah.
okay.
So,
nice. You are an artist, Robert.
well, what I am is an observer. And what I wanted to talk about is that I had a photograph. It's much darker than this. It was taken on a hike in the Smokies, I don't know, several years ago, actually, at this point. And what I've been doing is a practice of just really looking at the photograph and thinking, why is that there? How did it happen? What are the colors that it's, sequences through in the course of a day? My sister taught me this. She sculpts horses and draws, and after 40 years of doing of riding horses, she sat down with me one day and described how when she's drawing a portrait of a horse, she has photographs, but she's thinking in terms of her musculature sitting on that animal while it's doing whatever, jumping, just standing, just sort of quivering. I mean, she knows it all, and it all goes into her conception of what needs to come forth. I went and sat on that rock, actually, the big one. But my point is that something emerges as a sort of a life sequence that's occurring there. And it's in that it sort of generates something new in my thinking, in my mind, in the way I feel, in the way my hands move, because I'm not thinking about color. I'm simply mixing until it feels right, and then it goes in. And this is a totally new process for me. I bring it up because as far as, you're speaking in intellectual terms of, a theoretical analysis, what I'm talking about is that it's very real. And I would suggest it goes way beyond painting a picture. It's in almost anything that you do, there is this emergence of, it's not just an understanding, it's a being with.
Yeah, relationship is what's coming to mind.
Relationship. Yeah. And that this is, to me, is what really brings about a change. You know, for one thing, there's a humility there.
Mm,
And from that, an openness that, you know, something new can take place in me as I'm doing this work, whatever it might be. It used to happen to me when I was doing cabinet making, as furniture building as well. I often worked without plans, and for that reason, that things would just come through.
mhm,
Annie, go ahead.
The word reciprocity comes to me about what
mhm,
you're saying,
mhm, mhm.
because nature is reciprocating all the time in its exchange, in its response to a stimulus from somewhere else.
It also feels to me like allowing the wholeness of the other to show up. That everything that is the other, both past and present, is available so that there's that depth of relationship. It's not surface, it's complete because you get the whole response of the other is there.
And the beauty of this is it doesn't stop. It came to me the other night that I need to send this painting to my niece, who's a biologist, and that she would appreciate it. And so I actually just pulled it out of the envelope because I'll go mail it as soon as we're done.
Nice, nice.
Rob, how did you get started painting?
Oh, it's another relationship. So a year ago and a couple of weeks, it was the week before New Year's, I went out to dinner with some friends of my wife's and not mine. And the woman I was sitting next to, there were a bunch of people, but the woman I was sitting next to is an artist, and I knew that. I mean, she used to sell her work and teach, and you know, she's my age, but you know, she had done this years before, for years. And she wasn't painting much. And I said, you know, I've had this urge to paint, and I'm not painting much either. So we made New Year's resolutions. So what happened was we were going to call each other every 2 weeks, and we kept that up pretty faithfully all through the year.
Whoa.
And she got started, and I got free instruction.
You got
I
what?
mean, free instruction.
Oh,
I mean, you know, she was happy to do that, but you know, it was like I probably couldn't have gotten that any other way, since I didn't have time to take classes, that sort of thing. So that's also has everything to do with relationship, and suddenly realizing that there's this emergent, you know, agreement about something, or you know, a commonality that I never would have guessed, except it came up in conversation.
my curiosity is piqued by what you said about the instruction that you got from her, and in terms of how you started. And because I would like to start, I would like to paint, but I don't see instruction in that framework. I just thought if you paint, you get yourself a canvas and a thing and some paint, and then you automatically, you naturally will just start.
No, I in a way I totally agree with you, Ani, but with one caveat, which is
It doesn't work.
that I would paint something, and then I'd think to myself, that isn't what I wanted. You know, that wasn't true to what I saw. Why? She would tell me, she would help me to see, not telling me actually, but by asking questions and pointing, she would teach me to see what I'd done and how I could have done it differently.
Let me ask you, yeah, so you're attempting to put on the canvas what you see in your mind, basically. What about if what's in your mind, you don't even know what it is?
Well, I've used a crutch, which is to use photographs. That's a starting point.
But then how is that, and how is art an expression of your own innards if you're trying to copy?
Well, because I took the photographs. And
It's always a copy.
so I go back in my mind and, I don't know why I chose to take that photograph that way. But if I look, I can begin to see things consciously that I probably did not see before.
Do you
So it's a new way of relating to the same subject matter.
do you enjoy your painting of the picture that you took as well as you enjoy looking at the picture you took?
No, I enjoy both of them.
Okay.
I mean, I do enjoy looking at and seeing, because it conveys to me things that I, had worked through.
What conveys to you?
The picture conveys to me a lot of energy that, I might have never seen, even in the process of making it. I did not realize the turmoil in the water and how it related to the rocks. And I begin to see those things just because I've been through the action of it. It's almost as if if this were larger scale and I took a kayak, it's almost, as if I'd gone through it and felt the ripples. But I can do that without getting in a tiny kayak and trying to go through this, because this is smaller scale. But that's what it's about. To me, it's art because it conveys an experience. If I were just reproducing it, mindlessly taking a photograph, that's not art,
Right,
in my mind, even though they're of the same subject matter.
Well, and that's how I think photographs are different. Some people have the experience of the place in the photograph, and others just have the picture of it, and they don't grab you in the same way. They don't have the same resonance.
And I think
What makes
that
great
gets,
photography.
I believe that gets to the ground of all of the issue, the blockage that people have toward truly revering nature or truly understanding their connection to it, is because they've seen it as a series of pictures. Isn't that beautiful? As beautiful as an accomplished fact, whereas it's beautiful as one micro instant in a succession of many instances. But you only know that if you've lived through it, experienced it.
So I have put in the chat, and this is a segue, and please, I apologize for that, but I didn't want to forget it. There is a couple who have been working with trees for a very long time, and they go talk to trees and help trees overcome various problems and issues. And I got an email this morning because they're very concerned about the ice storm on the East Coast in particular. So they sent a series of things to say to trees. So I have put that in the chat. So if you are so inclined, you can copy that. And I also noticed that Mark put something in the chat. Mark, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I mean, I think that there was just me affirming, like, it seems everyone this past week, has been considering aspects of what the word evolution points to. And so there were the two examples, or two of the examples that I'd been playing with myself. If I was to say something further, I like Robert, I guess prefer the word emergence to evolution, specifically co-emergence, because it reminds us that evolution doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's emergence of the self and the environment together, which can then remind us, well, it invites us potentially to actually consider that this idea of selection, and even the fullest extension of that thinking, which is multi-level selection, which is to say selections happening at multiple levels of life and even the cosmos. It's kind of, again, it's potentially a human-centric way of looking at emergence, that it looks to us like things are being selected for, but in actuality, all it is emergence. And to label that as selection is kind of missing what's fundamentally going on there. And then the last thing I would say, or last thing I'd say on that thread is something you also mentioned, Catherine, which is connecting autonomy with, or agency, I think is the word you use, with evolution. And so with going from evolution to co-emergence and knowing that there's a self and an environment, within the self is agency. So there is a internal aspect of a self that is participating in the co-emergence, as is the substance of the environment that it's interacting with. And that can also connect to the word you also introduced, Arnie, which is reciprocity, because selves and environments have that type of relationship. So that's all, in many ways, recapping what was going through my head as this conversation's being had. The question that I have my own answer to, that I would then invite considering, is evolution, or what we could call co-emergence as well, is it limited to biology, or is it a more universal phenomenon?
Well, it's a universal phenomenon, cosmic for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, bang's still banging.
Yeah. And so if that's the case, I think it's really important to note that, because if we don't, we can sort of forget and think that we're talking about something that only happens in biology, but it's actually something that happens in all of the levels of organization that we're seeing, from energy to physics, to chemistry, to biology, to psychology, to technology, and if there's anything beyond that. And so I guess if I was to say one more thing, it would be something that I'm sort of being reminded of in my work recently. Is it's something that was maybe known, but a little bit, I forget the word I'm trying to use here. It was present but not being acknowledged, perhaps, which is, even though the model that I've shared with you all is intended to be a model that is describing what is required for health and biology, most of that model also applies to chemistry and physics and energy. It just so happens that when it does, we're seeing different things because we're looking at a different level of organization. And so yeah, that connects with that sort of the question I posed, and the answer, which is that evolution or co-emergence is happening at all levels, and in many ways it's the only way that we've gotten here, through all of the complexification of the cosmos.
Mhm.
One characteristic of evolution just came to me while you spoke, and it's not just emergence. Evolution is not just emergence, it's also complexification.
Yes. Yeah. It would have to be.
Oops. Let's see. I did something and I lost everybody.
We can still see you.
Yeah, you're there.
Yeah.
It's really nice that you mentioned that, Ani, because I think like in my saying uh emergence, for me, the complexification was implied, but you pointing to that is helpful to kind of consider whether that piece somehow has to be elevated or emphasized more. So thank you.
I think when we, at least for me, when we talk about us and the environment, that word environment hides all of the other us's. It sort of paints it all over with one brush instead of really showcasing the fact that everything is living in that environment. It's a bunch of others, and it's all about the others interacting with us and us interacting with others, which is where the complexity would have to come. I mean, it couldn't not come. When you add two things, you one and one makes another thing just by that relationship. So when you multiply those relationships so exponentially, it couldn't help but be different, be more complex, be more elegant, more elaborate. Um, and the word environment just sort of makes it all one mush. You you forget the richness of the others that are there, and the incredible diversity that's really in that process. It
Do you
seems to
think there's a better word? And as you're pondering that, the image I have with interactions of a self and environment is a self can be directly interacting with another species, and obviously this is a very simplified model. It's like it's imagining the self as an entity with a membrane, and then everything outside of that membrane being the environment. And many of our interactions are actually with what is in the environment generally, especially if it's in the symbolic space. So like if it is a word that has been uttered by another person into the environment, we're getting it from the environment, not necessarily from that person in this example. However, there can be direct, you know, organism to organism interactions also. So it's kind of like it's generally an interaction of self and environment, and some of those interactions can be a direct self to self.
I want to question that a little bit, because even a word comes with meaning from both parties.
Yeah,
So there's a
which is
meaning
why
that it's
the
expressed and a meaning by which it's received. So it's not really in the environment ever. It's always in that relationship. I think we
you're
work
right
hard.
that you're right that that we are storing it kind of in a distributed way within ourselves, but like it's something that doesn't just exist in ourselves, it exists in all of us together too, which makes it an environmental
But differently.
phenomenon.
Yeah, it's differently in each of us. It's not the same in each of us. It's unique to each of us.
To a degree, like I mean, I think you're making astute points, and like there are some things that are very much the same in us, like the letter A, for instance. Like we all have the same letter A in us, and if we've learned calculus, we have the same x, equals y equals ax plus b. Like we have some things that are objectively exactly the same. If we get to a word such as how I think about evolution and you think about evolution, yes, we start to have differences there. But if we, and this is in some ways like what the project of epistemology is, in terms of like, how do we know what we know, and how do we know that what we're in relationship with is quote unquote real or not. It's when enough of us are interacting with objectively the same thing, and how we are holding it is similar enough that we as a group know that it's a real thing, as opposed to which science to a degree tries to do, with the caveat that science only has a certain ability of inquiry. Like it's a tool that can't inquire into everything. So we can't use science for knowing everything because it only has so much ability to penetrate. However, it can be quite a good common language. And if you take the other end of the spectrum, being a more experiential knowing, which we might want to say is more individual, I can't remember what the final point on that saying is, but there's something different there in terms of our knowing, that is less of an empirical quantification of a thing rather than a direct relationship with a thing, which is more of a qualitative nature than a quantitative nature, because we haven't done the reduction to make it quantified.
Let me add one thing to that. Just might help streamline the conversation for me anyway, and I hope for all of you. But so I've been following a discourse about imagining if the universe is in fact a simulation. So reality being a simulation. And I got kind of hung up on this. One fellow was trying to determine sort of the bulk amount of, of bits of information that there are in the universe. And I started thinking of just what would happen, just looking like something like this painting I was showing you, what's happening between the rock, the lichen on the rock, the forces that cause those little, cavities in the rock. Well, that's just the rock. Then there's the water. All of these aspects, living or not, are having different experiences. And they all have had different experiences coming into it. The rock's been sitting there for 1,000,000 years. The water molecules go back perhaps to the comets. 4 billion years ago. It's just information. Someone came up with a 10 to the 80th power of information bits. I say that's false. That cannot possibly be true. They're just talking about our distinct, cognitive relationship to those objects, what we think they are. But we're not talking about the subjective aspect at all, what these elements, these living creatures are not. I mean, the Native Americans all thought that they gave certain aspects of life and consciousness even to the rocks. Now I understand why. So what I'm saying is that it's impenetrable. There's no way of quantifying what's going on out there. It is absolutely an infinite number of possibilities.
And it's changing every second because new information is coming in, new realizations, new experiences. So it's always
New
exponentially
emergence.
increasing.
In a sense, that's all emergence.
Yeah.
It's just that maybe to my set idea of what a rock is, nothing has changed in 10 years to that particular boulder. except for a little growth of the lichen on it. But that's just me, my terrible short-sightedness, the limitations of my consciousness. Because in fact, a lot's been going on. No, I mean, it's a mind bog, I get my mind all twisted up late at night thinking about such things. But
I also want to come back to the level of system we're talking about, because I think we confuse those a lot, or we slide through them without really realizing it. And when you were talking, Mark, I was thinking of the 5 levels of knowledge. That's what I think she called them, because data is where we agree, and then we put data together, so that's the A, and then we put A's together with B's, C's, D's, and other letters, and you get information. And that takes on a different complexity than the data did. And then you have knowledge when you put the words together. So now you've got words and paragraphs. And then you have wisdom, which is a whole level, a jump up above all of those things put together. There's something that comes out of that that's bigger than the sum of the parts. And those things are very different. And some people have all of them, some people have some of them. And the strive to bring all of them together is what creates wisdom. You have to have all those pieces in order to achieve that level. You can't get the sense of the whole without having all of those pieces together. And we can get fixated on any level, pay attention to any level, and there's learning and stuff that happens there. But it's only when they're all together that you actually get this enough of an understanding to take the next leap, to be bigger than what it is that you came from, which is part of, for me, evolution and emergence, that there's a jump that happens there that allows for that new thing to be whole, to be its own self, which is different. So I'm holding emergence and evolution in slightly different ways. That emergence is like the beginning of things, and when they stay, when they have legs, or a life of their own, in some kind of a wholeness of their own, then we have evolution. We have a new thing that's actually there, not a potential, but something that's truly there.
Something autopoetic that makes itself.
Yes, yeah.
Did you have any thoughts, Catherine, on that question of a better word for environment?
I have not been using the word. I just use lots of selves is what I've been using. It's cumbersome, but it's the only way I've known. I don't know that we have a word that would reflect that. And I don't, I mean, Ken kind of does that too. If you really hold that relationship as foremost, not just the entity itself, but the relationship is the important thing, then kin works for that we're always relating to our kin in every level. So the air is kin, the earth is kin, our breathing. There's English, we're so full of nouns that it's really hard to speak of the reciprocity that just happens with everything, and that relationship that happens with everything. I mean, we speak to it poetically. I think that's why there's poetry and art, because they get to depths that we can't get to with the words, and song. Those are other ways of reaching other levels of connection that we see there and experience there, and can then respond to, that words don't always make happen. And sometimes silence does. Just being with, there's no way to actually share it. You can acknowledge it, but you can't share it with anybody. It's just there.
I wish I could see you all. I can't see us.
So did you go up to view? And put it on gallery and see what happens?
No, I don't even have that link available.
Yeah, in my screen, it's on the upper right. A box, a nine dot box.
Yeah, I don't have that screen. I don't know what I have and what I have, but I can hear you, but I can't see anything but this big white Zoom screen that's
Oh, then you've lost, yeah, you've lost the screen. So, oh, you're in a Mac, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Um, so wherever you see all of the boxes that tell you what app you're in, go down to the Zoom app and click on that.
I
In
don't
the
have,
dock,
okay.
click
Yes.
on,
Yeah. Oh, there. Okay, gotcha.
Very good.
Yay.
yeah, it's just a different layer and you were in a wrong layer. So you just bring that other layer up front.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, while the conversation was going on that we just had, structural coupling kept coming to me of the environment and the organism, the relationship between the organism and its environment is what is termed structural coupling. And I still want to understand what that is more. I still want to have a real insight into what structural coupling is, because I don't know really what that means, except there's a reciprocity, there's some kind of exchange.
Yeah, I think in Mark's phrase, it's where we have agreement.
I would describe it as when there's an interaction between, this is how I would describe it, when there's an interaction between the self and an environment, and as a result of that interaction with something in the environment, something structurally changes within the self, that is a structural coupling. And we can say that that's synonymous with knowledge. So knowledge is being in a relationship with something that is in the environment, and the environment could be inside of us if it's our conscious environment. It could also be outside of us in our physical environment, or it could be outside of us in the collective consciousness environment, which is the environment of, you know, symbols and language and other psychotechnologies which are intangible. So that's kind of like why I would suggest when we start to think about knowledge and wisdom and limit it to psychotechnologies such as language, which are comprised of symbols and then assembled into words and words into phrases and stuff. We are talking about knowledge, but we're only talking about part of knowledge, because we can have knowledge without any of that. We can know a rock because we are sitting on it. And especially if it's a rock that we sit on a lot, we know that rock without the rock being there, which means to say we've experienced that structural coupling to it, and something is different inside of us because of it, that once we're not in contact with that rock, something about that rock persists within us.
Nice.
Yeah, it's important.
Nice. I get that. Thank you. Yeah, because when I've tried to understand structural coupling, it's like, okay, I'm in relationship with the walls of my room here. What's going on? But what you just said makes sense.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Mark, for for being here, because you're using a type of language that I'm not very, or a languaging, I should say, the use of it, that I'm not so familiar with. And you're very clear.
Sometimes, thank you.
I'm very grateful for that. I mean, I've been known to just sort of, toss it aside because it seems difficult to understand or, confusing. But well, both you and Catherine, it allows me to look at these on a more, should I say, a language-based approach to some of the things that I get lazy in terms of language, but that I feel, to become whole, you need to use all aspects.
I think that's kind of, you're pointing, Robert, to like, in some sense, what I'll use the word, I know the larger project that humanity is participating in a movement towards a healthy world, which is that we get the right mix of generality and precision. Like, we're really precise about our generalities, as opposed to being really precise about specifics, where we get lost. In so many ways, like, we can say that we've made a lot of our ideas, but also our physical world, so complicated that we can't know it. And we're missing, it's another phrase here, is we're missing the forest for the trees, when we actually need to know the forest, because that is like the general sense, the thing that we must know for our actions to be informed by knowledge that can mean our actions are participating in bringing about health. If we get into the trap through whatever reason, and we've all been doing it together for a long time, where we, for whatever reason, start the pursuit of trying to know something like more precisely, specifically, we get into we get onto a pathway that we don't have a natural exit out of, to general knowing. But yeah, like, when we're talking about, like, big things like biology and psychology and chemistry and physics and energy, like, we're never going to know them all specifically. But we do need to know, if we're going to have our actions be informed by thinking, we do need to have the fundamentals of those things in our thinking, for our thinking to be informing actions that are potential creating actions. And we also need to know specifically, like, our exact place and time, so that, like, the thing that we're doing that's informed by general understanding has actually got purchase on the thing that we specifically are, and in the place that we're specifically in. Because if we don't have a sense of those three things, a specific sense of self, a specific sense of context or environment, and a general sense of the world, then it's very unlikely, or I'd say maybe impossible, for our actions to be actions that are our actions that are part of bringing about health in the living world.
I love your phrase, bringing about health, because I think that's really the key that we've kind of lost. And for me, that general understanding would have to be this reverence for life. If that informs everything, then it's all coherent and we're all bringing forth health. When we don't have that, then what we do actually is a destructive force and rips apart those pieces that make for health.
And what you just said is beyond knowledge. It's deeper than knowledge. It's more complex than knowledge.
Yeah, but it is a wisdom.
Definitely. It's a lot of things.
Yeah, so it has to be informed by knowledge too. Yeah.
Yeah.
the last thing I would sort of offer before I have to jump off is like sort of an example. Like if we bring up the topic of consciousness, you know, we'll have people say we really don't know what that is, and you've got like just oodles of theories and blah 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 blah, and like that is such a pursuit of precise knowledge of this thing that we're pointing to, and we get lost in sort of without purchase. But what we can say for sure that consciousness is that it is awareness, and that it comes about emergently at the level of being or cosmology that a thing is. And because of that coming about, it affords certain things that weren't possible without it. And we that is a complete enough general understanding of consciousness to go, okay, we are pointing to this thing. We know that it emerged in us because that's our experience. And we know that because of it, we can do things that we couldn't do without it. And now we can move on without like pretending that we need to get, you know, infinitely more precise about it before using it as a knowledge.
I think what's missing though is the general context, because consciousness is also about life, about health. Consciousness doesn't exist without health.
Can
We lose health when we lose consciousness, and vice versa.
can we shift a little from mental descriptive stuff to some kind of inner expressive beingness with each other? Because I'm ODing on mental. I'm sorry. I can't stand it when it gets too mental. I just want to go.
On that note, I think I will say, yeah, take a moment to experience what you're experiencing. And then the second invitation would be to spend some time outside this afternoon in the natural world. And I don't know that I can offer too much more than that in this moment.
I know how to take care of myself. I'm talking about right now with the mental whatever. I've OD'd. No, when we're finished, I'm good. You know, I mean, I'm all right.
And it is time to go, and I have to go too. I have an appointment at 11. So,
And one of my sisters is waiting for me to call, so I should go too.
Yeah, could we have a thought while we go and contemplate this week, though, that the deep dive, this is not deep. I mean, that it's more a whole body, whole being experience than defining and talking about and having mental constructs of everything. Because this is deep dive. Mental constructs to me are not the kind of deep dive that I understand this forum for. This is relational. This is exchange more than how we define and what we think about. I mean, we want that, but anyway, I'm done. I'm sorry.
I'm really grateful for the diversity of what comes through us.
Yes.
Anyway,
Length of it, perhaps. I don't know.
see you later. Next week for sure.
thank you all for being here.
Bye
That's
bye.
gratitude. Enjoy the weekend. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.